Thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, the media versus Israel. The BBC apologizing to Israel after one of their anchors said on air the Israeli forces are happy to kill children. We'll take a look at media bias against the Jewish state and President Biden's criticism of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government. Thousands take part in the Jesus Revolution baptism this weekend at the location where they filmed the baptism scenes in the movie. A university professor fights back after school leaders said they found his teachings were, quote, too religious. We'll hear what he has to say about the case. And the faith-based thriller Sound of Freedom going strong at the box office after a strong performance this weekend. Those stories and more today on CBN News Watch.
This is CBN News Watch.
We begin in the Middle East, where the Israeli Defense Forces carried out a two-day raid into the Palestinian city of Jenin last week. Israel launched the raid to stop the wave of terrorism after more than 50 Israelis had been killed or injured from terrorists from the city in the past year. But as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, many in the media blamed Israel for the consequences of the raid.
During an interview with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, a BBC anchor made the following statement.
Terrorists, but children. The Israeli forces are happy to kill children.
The anchor noted 4 of the 11 terrorists killed were under the age of 18. Bennett responded with this question.
You know, it's quite remarkable that you'd say that because they're killing us. Now, if there's a 17-year-old Palestinian that's shooting at your family, Anjana, what is he?
After the interview, the BBC apologized for the anchor's statement. While this was a legitimate subject to examine in the interview, we apologize that the language used in this line of questioning was not phrased well and was inappropriate.
I found their apology to be rather pathetic. That was just such a preposterous allegation, especially during an operation in which there were how many civilian deaths, Chris? 0.
Gil Huffman is executive director of Honest Reporting, a group that monitors the media's reporting on Israel. He says when the media gets it wrong about Israel, it can become a matter of life and death. He points to coverage during this year's Ramadan, when Muslim rioters barricaded themselves in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. When Israeli police went inside to stop the rioters from harming worshippers, the story got flipped upside down.
They took YouTube videos that made it look like it was the IDF attacking these rioters. And of course, the headlines around the world were Israeli police attack worshippers in mosque. And that was the exact opposite of the truth. But that false reporting was used as an excuse to fire rockets at Israelis from Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza.
Hoffman says another example is when CNN anchor Christiane Amanpour claimed Rabbi Leo D's wife and 2 daughters were killed in a shootout rather than murdered in a terror attack. Weeks later, Amanpour apologized. CBN News asked Rabbi D about her statement.
Tremendously upset, I and the kids, to be accused of a family being terrorists. Then we had 2 other interactions, as you say, with CNN, both of which made me feel like I was the terrorist and the terrorist somehow was the victim. And I think this is endemic in the CNN reporting. And so we are planning to take them to court, and the planning for that is currently underway.
Hoffman believes when people point out the media's bias, it can make a difference.
It's more important than ever that we get the best coverage possible of Israel to save lives. And that's what Honest Reporting does in monitoring the media and making sure that the coverage improves.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, do you expect any changes after the BBC apologized?
Well, at least according to Gil Huffman, we interviewed for the story, it seems unlikely. In some cases, for sure. Now, he monitors the media all the time. He expects the same kind of coverage, unfortunately. It's why they exist, Honest Reporting. They constantly monitor the global media about how Israel is covered. And according to Huffman, their work has led to the firing of journalists and that literally, believe it or not, support Hamas and they praise Hitler. They often do get publications to correct their reporting, like in this case with the BBC, but it's a constant effort, as well with the CNN as well. Now, one thing that may make a difference is court cases. Rabbi D has a court case in progress. It hasn't been actually filed yet. but it's reported that he might sue CNN for $1.3 billion for what Christiane Amanpour said in her reporting. Things like that really could make a difference as well.
Chris, Israel faced media criticism over the Jenin raid. What does at least one military expert say about the IDF's conduct during that operation?
Well, Mark, this is Colonel Richard Kemp. He's the former commander of the British military forces in Afghanistan. And what he said is that the complete avoidance of any civilian casualties in those 2 days was a, quote, remarkable achievement by the IDF. And he says it's actually unprecedented in modern warfare. And the reason for that, Mark, is he says usually casualty ratios in this kind of urban setting, they sometimes have a ratio of 3 to 5 civilians killed for each fighter. And Western armies do all they can to avoid civilian casualties and adhere to the laws of war. But he said he doubts that any other army in the whole world would be able to achieve what the IDF did in Jenin. Now, they do this all the time, and they really take pains, whether it's in Gaza or Jenin, to avoid civilian casualties. What makes it even harder is that in this terrorist stronghold, the terrorists actually are hiding behind civilians and using them as human shields. And to do that, what they would like to do, and this is a tactic employed by Hamas and other Islamic groups. They hope that if civilians are killed, this is going to attract world condemnation. So that's what he says, unlike many other reporting around the world about what the Jenin operation actually did do.
President Joe Biden said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Israeli coalition government is one of the most extreme he's seen. What has been the reaction in Israel?
Well, the reaction from one, Danny Danon, he's the former Israeli ambassador to the UN. He said he respects the U.S., but the policy of the state of Israel will be determined by the democratically elected people of Israel. Now, privately, we've heard that it's been reported that many members of the coalition were furious about the comments. But right now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, he really doesn't want any breaches in the relationship with the U.S. since he needs the U.S. in any future military action against Iran's nuclear facilities. So he wants to keep the relations between Israel and the U.S. on good footing.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem. Thanks, Chris. It was a baptism of biblical proportions. Thousands of people lined up at Pirates Cove in California Saturday to take part in the Jesus Revolution baptism. It's the same place they filmed the baptism scenes in the movie. But according to Pastor Greg Laurie, they never had a baptism like this one before. CBN's Wendy Griffith brings us that story.
Inspired by the movie Jesus Revolution, thousands of people came from all across America and the world to take part in a Jesus Revolution baptism at the now famous Pirates Cove. Pastor Greg Laurie, whose story is featured in the film and was baptized here himself 50 years ago, couldn't believe the size of Saturday's crowd.
We have around 4,000 people signed up to be baptized today. Can you believe that?
Thousands of people lined the seawall at the iconic Pirates Cove to wait their turn, as Pastor Laurie explained to the crowd what baptism really means.
Because you're saying goodbye to the old you, buried with Christ in baptism, so you might walk in newness of life. That's what the Bible says. So you're coming out saying, I'm making this commitment, and you're doing it publicly in front of friends and family.
Shelley came from Arizona with her 3 nieces to be baptized for the first time.
I saw the movie at first, and then I realized that we all needed to get baptized.
How do you feel?
I feel wonderful. It's a new life.
Newport Beach Mayor Pro Tem Will O'Neill called what's happening here incredible.
Not only are they baptizing people, but they're really bringing a community together. And look, we spend a lot of time thinking about water quality here in Newport Beach, but nothing is more pure than what's happening right now. And it's just a special thing to see today.
Pastor Laurie says he's thrilled to see the impact the movie Jesus Revolution is having on a new generation. He's urging Christians to keep praying for revival so that what's happening in Pirates Cove will spread across the nation. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Coming up, a university professor is fighting back after he says he was fired because school leaders thought his teachings were, quote, too religious. We're going to hear from him when we come back.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
A Texas professor claims he was fired after university leaders found his teachings too religious. Dr. Johnson Varkey and his attorneys at First Liberty Institute sent a letter to St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas, charging that his firing was illegal. CBN's Billy Hallowell sat down with Dr. Varkey to learn more about why he's fighting back.
As a biology professor for the past 20 years, Dr. Johnson Varkey consistently taught the same scientific facts about the human reproductive system without any problems. But he says that recently changed when he received a notice of dismissal.
I was surprised and I was shocked because, I would never expected for such a letter from or such an email from the school, because I've been teaching that for that school for the last 20 years and without any complaints.
Dr. Varkey believes his lessons on human biology and sex being determined by chromosomes X and Y sparked complaints which led to his dismissal.
On the 12th of January, I received an email from the vice president of the school that they are doing an ethic violation investigation on me. 2 weeks after the first email, I received another email with a letter of termination.
Dr. Varkey says although he asked about complaints, he received no response from HR and didn't get a chance to defend himself before his firing.
When I got the letter of termination, what the VP mentioned was that some of the complaints were offensive to the homosexuals and transgender. So I presume and I assume that very possible it is based on human reproductive system, which I taught in November. When I taught this class, 4 of my students just walked out.
First Liberty attorney Keisha Russell believes Dr. Varkey's case likely has much to do with current cultural trends.
When I saw the termination letter and I see that the university is accusing him of religious preaching, I think that what they don't understand is even if he was, they still can't fire him for saying something that he believes to be true.
Russell says her client's speech was based on his sincerely held beliefs and ethical integrity and is protected under the First Amendment. Furthermore, she believes Dr. Varkey's views on biology and other related issues are backed by science.
We just think it's a shame that they would fire one of their long-term professors for teaching what he's always taught.
A representative for the Alamo College's district told CBN News it does not comment on personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation. As for Varkey, he's hoping to successfully convince St. Philip's College to overturn his dismissal.
Dr. Varkey obviously wants to be reinstated, and he wants his job back and his record cleared because he didn't do anything wrong.
Russell believes the college violated Dr. Varkey's First Amendment rights, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I'm Billy Hallowell, CBN News.
Still ahead, big numbers of new moms turning to alcohol, sipping wine during play dates at the park, drinking beer at the zoo with the kids, and more. We're going to look at the dangers of the mommy wine culture right after this. Welcome back. It's called mommy wine culture. That's the catchphrase of a marketing campaign targeting young mothers. It aims to convince them they need alcohol to cope with the pressures of raising children. Social media memes make it sound like it's harmless fun, but CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us why it's deadly serious.
Wine gets better with age. I get better with wine. Okay, guilty. You girls know that's true. We do.
The troubling messages often try to be humorous and appear on a number of products, from baby clothes with mommy drinks because I cry, to wine glasses with mommy's sippy cup, t-shirts reading coffee, hockey mom, wine repeat, and even memes like the most expensive part of having kids is all the wine you have to drink.
I think this messaging that is everywhere, it normalizes this behavior of drinking to survive parenthood. And it normalizes this idea that like drinking a lot is no big deal.
As it turns out, the messaging sadly reflects reality. Kelly Manley turned to alcohol to fit in with her peers, who she observed drinking everywhere at kids' birthday parties, soccer practices, you name it.
People would show up to the park with little, discreet glasses of wine to have at, 4 p.m. on a play date at the park. You go to the zoo and for a small upcharge, you can buy a flight of beer, not just a beer, but a flight of beer to enjoy while you're pushing your kid around the zoo.
And like other events these days, it's going digital, like the Moms Who Need Wine Facebook group.
Alcohol has been sold as the ultimate way to decompress, to cope, and to bond with other women. And it's very dangerous.
The alcohol industry has certainly played a part. Back in the 90s, it ushered in the so-called pinking of the market, making and advertising booze aimed specifically at women.
Drink these sweetened, pre-sweetened, gorgeous, attractive pink drinks that will end you into drinking spirits, drinking pretty wine, drinking wine with names like, French Rabbit.
And it worked. While historically men consumed the most alcohol, women are now catching up. In the last 15 years, the greatest increase in consumption has been among women in their 30s and 40s. However, because of biological differences, women absorb more alcohol and take longer to metabolize it than men. That means the same amount of alcohol typically damages the female body more than the man's. After drinking the same amount of alcohol, women tend to have higher blood alcohol levels than men, and the effects usually occur more quickly and last longer in women. Alcohol also makes women more susceptible than men to liver disease, heart disease, cancer, and cognitive decline. U.S. health officials recommend women should drink no more than 5 ounces of wine a day. Canadian health officials go further, saying only 2 5-ounce glasses per week.
This is a women's health issue. It's, in fact, a big public health issue.
And it's not just physical. Alcohol affects mental health, too, which is why Kelly gave it up.
It just exacerbated my feelings of anxiety and depression, and I felt like I was betraying myself every time I drank.
She's not alone. More moms are rejecting mommy wine culture and turning to groups like Sober Mom Squad.
Having a safe space where you can talk to other moms about, the questions you're having about alcohol or how difficult it is to navigate in this culture where everyone tells you you need to drink to be a parent, and not have to justify that you should just be grateful to have kids.
Many moms are also saying no because they're concerned about the culture's impact on their child's self-esteem.
Most problematic part of it is, what is it saying to your kids? Again, if it's, tongue-in-cheek jokes like between friends, that's one thing. But when you're wearing the T-shirt that said "Mommy needs wine," saying that you have to, I have to drink because you're difficult. I think that leads into something that's even more damaging.
So while pop culture and big alcohol try to convince new moms life is better with booze, a growing number are rejecting that message for the sake of their own health as well as their families. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, going strong at the box office. Sound of Freedom, about a Christian federal agent who went after sex trafficking, is one of the top films in America. We'll have that story when we come back. Stay with us.
October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place, all day, every day. The CBN News Channel. Download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com. CBN News.
After debuting as the top film in the country last week on the 4th of July, the faith-based thriller Sound of Freedom is still going strong at the box office, making an estimated $18 million over the weekend to finish number 3. It's brought in $40 million since its release last Tuesday, and it has a 100% score from the audience on the movie review site Rotten Tomatoes. The film stars Jim Caviezel and tells the story of a former Homeland Security agent, a Christian who goes on a mission to free hundreds of children from sex traffickers. The movie is from Angel Studios, which also brought out the crowd-funded series The Chosen, about the life of Jesus. Great to see that movie doing so well. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.